All right, everybody. So, the election results have been a massive wake-up call for a lot of people. And I honestly think that the biggest wake-up call has been for the Democratic Party as a whole. There are a lot of things that we can gain as an insight from these election results. We could basically just bury our heads in the sand if we wanted to. We could do anything from claiming that Trump cheated to win and that Harris did actually win, which is massive cope. We could claim that Harris didn't win because she didn't focus hard enough on insert your favorite, most important to you issue here. Or we can look at what genuinely went wrong, introspect, identify the problem, and set forth with trying to solve it. It is doubtless that the reason Trump won this election was the economy. Donald Trump promised to bring the economy to unforeseen levels of success. He has presented Trump's promise to cut everyone's taxes to basically nothing and tariff other countries to make federal funds. This is, of course, not how tariffing works, nor is it how taxation works, but the American people here, instead of you paying income tax, other countries will pay a tax to us, which is what they think tariffs are, because they don't know what tariffs are, and they buy it, right? And they voted for him in droves, despite how aggressively antagonistic his rhetoric was, even towards the groups that swayed towards voting for him. People didn't show up. It's not just that, sicko fit. You have to remember, demographics slid from voting for Biden in 2020 to voting for Trump in 2024. It wasn't just a turnout issue, sicko fit. Mind you, Harris's turnout was normal. You gotta remember, Biden just had the biggest turnout ever. People kept on complaining about how there's gotta be 10 million more votes to count, right? And it's like, well, no. Y'all can cope about it as much as you like, but Harris was never going to bring out as many votes as Biden did in 2020. Biden, was overwhelmingly popular outside of the hyper niche lefty sphere online. Biden was overwhelmingly successful in his election. He got the most votes any president has ever gotten, and by quite a bit. The turnout was lower for Harris because that is how, it was on par with Obama's turnout or Hillary's turnout. It was generally normal turnout for a president to win or lose with. It's just Biden who got an insane turnout that once. That's not normal Dem turnout. That's just what Biden was able to do. And I get that, everybody's convinced themselves so much that Biden's so unpopular, but he just wasn't. He just wasn't. He actually just wasn't. He actually simply, objectively wasn't. You fell for it. I'm sorry, guys, but, you fell for it. No one was making money off of riding with Biden. I can assure you I wasn't. YouTube content about how good Biden was doing was not doing well. But what was doing great, what was getting millions of views in some cases, was just shit-talking Biden for literally anything. And so, yeah. A lot of people on the left have been brainwashed into thinking Biden was an unviable candidate. Also Harris was more popular? No, she wasn't. How do you know that? Biden won the primary. He had the incumbent advantage, sure, but he won the primary. How can you say that Harris should have been popular or would have been popular? It doesn't matter. Popularity, or I should say approval ratings, have no bearing on the popularity of what's going to turn out to be the total result of the election. You gotta remember, Trump's popularity, or Trump's approval rating, was record low during the 2020 election, and yet Trump brought out more votes than he did in 2016, by a lot. Trump's approval ratings were unbelievably low, and it still resulted in him gaining support. Biden just gained so much unprecedented support that he was able to win despite that. If Biden wasn't such a strong candidate for whatever reasons in 2020, he would have lost. Trump would have won by just like he did this time. Always understood on an intellectual level that we are fucked, but it is kicking in emotionally to super doomer pilled right now. Don't doomer. That's cringe. On the bright side, though, this is actually what I wanted to get to. On the bright side, in the aftermath of this, you know who's been locking in? Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders...
The working class...
I hate YouTube so fucking much. Bernie Sanders has always had a very pro-working class messaging, right? He's always been so very pro-working class. And that has never wavered. And because of that, he has grown to be a very popular, not popular enough to win, but popular candidate among both Dems and Republicans. It seems as though, especially after the economic crash we experienced because of COVID and the war in Ukraine, that countless Americans were radicalized towards far more pro-working class positions. And that rhetoric, even though it was not lefty, socialist, pro-union working class rhetoric from Trump, it was still, you working class people, I will put money in your pockets. And that is the kind of pro-working class that Americans want. They don't want socialism. They want to make more money and to succeed more under capitalism as it is. They don't want any changes to the system fundamentally. They want to succeed in the system as it is. And you cannot sell most Americans on like a massive overhaul of the system that's fair to everyone, but you can convince them that they personally will benefit and succeed under this current system if they elect you. And that is what Trump ran on. A radical improvement to the economy, the same as what Bernie promises, but in a way that is far more familiar and acceptable than the idea of overhauling and reforming our economic and political system. Which is what, Bernie is still quite radical for most Americans. Nonetheless, though, he is out there getting onto platforms and engaging in hardcore messaging about why the Dems failed here and what they need to do in the future to hold power in this country. Hear Bernie talk about the type of rhetoric he hopes to see from the Dems, and then I want to show you a clip of Elon Musk talking about unions and the working class, just to show you what kind of people and what they think of workers are now in power, and who the American people, believing they were selecting the pro-working class option, truly elected. Who they decided against. Let's watch.
The working class of this country is angry, and they have a reason to be angry. We are living in an economy today, Donna, where the people on top are doing phenomenally well, while 60% of our people are living paycheck to paycheck. 25% of elderly people are trying to get by on $15,000 a year or less. We have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country on earth, and parents all over this country worry that their kids may have a lower standard of living than they do. That is the economic reality. And what
and this is a thing that I don't know if Bernie 100% gets. These people do not want to hear that you're going to get elected and change the system to make it more fair to everyone. They want to hear that you'll get elected and make sure that they specifically are doing better. They are afraid of change. They don't want any radical overhauls. They just want the system to go back to working well enough like it used to. They want the inflation to go down. They want the wages to continue to rise. They want basic, selfish desires of financial stability. And I do say selfish in the sense that none of them are willing to support a radical change that would help everyone. They're voting for themselves. They're voting for their own wallet. And this has been known of Americans for a long time when they vote on economics. And it's why I've always said, or I've been saying a lot lately, that the American people would elect the corpse of Hitler if he promised lower gas prices.
Donald Trump did is provided an explanation. He went around, he said, I know you're angry, and the reason is that zillions of illegal immigrants are coming over, and they're eating your cats and dogs and everything else. That's the reason. Well, obviously, that is not the reason. The reason is, in my view, that we have an unprecedented level of corporate greed today, more income and wealth inequality, and people on top want it all. And we need an agenda that says to the working class, we're going to take on these powerful special interests and create an economy and a government that works for you. And by the way, that can't happen unless you get big money out of politics. We got to get rid of the Citizens United Supreme Court decision so billionaires do not continue to buy elections.
This is true. I wish it was all grassroots. I don't feel like big corporate, like that is literally one of the most fundamental problems in all of politics is corporations. And, you know, obviously the Dems do this too, but to a much lesser extent because corporations don't gain much from backing the Dems as they do from, you know, helping Republicans that will deregulate everything get into power. So, unfortunately, the money in politics thing is the biggest issue is, you know, things like Musk becoming an oligarch in America and gaining power through wealth. That is what oligarchy is, by the way, just a wealthy person using their wealth to buy themselves into power and using that wealth to hold power. Like Musk is about to become definitionally, undisputedly, an oligarch in America. Genuinely terrifying. And of course, speaking of Elon Musk, the guy who is speaking for the administration that has supposedly been running on the idea of pro-working class, let's look at this pro-working class messaging that the American people are buying and thinking is best for them and their finances. Let's see what Musk has to say. You get a bit of a sneak peek here. Elon Musk, I disagree with the idea of unions.
Got a couple more questions for you. You're headed back to Texas after this to launch the Cybertruck.
Yeah.
It's going to be a big launch. But I wanted to ask you right now more broadly just about the car business and what you see actually happening. And specifically, the government put in place lots of policies, as you know, to try to encourage more EVs. And one of the things that's happened uniquely is you have now a lot of car companies saying, actually...
Do you mean Biden? Do you mean Biden specifically passed policies such as his tariffs on Chinese electric car imports to raise the price of foreign cars that are electric vehicles so people are more likely to buy American? Tariffs are stupid when it's like necessary products that are like, you know, we've just generally relied on China for manufacturing. But when it comes to emergent industries that we've actually gotten a pretty good hold of getting ahead on manufacturing for in America, it is actually quite smart to put a slight tariff on imports of that product or that type of product from other countries in order to encourage Americans to buy American. Yeah, like Biden did that. Highly specifically surgically targeted tariffs are fine. Trump wants to do broad tariffs of up to like 60%. It's actually like catastrophically bad.
This is too ambitious for us. These plans are too ambitious. 4,000 dealers, I don't know if you saw just yesterday, sent a letter to the White House saying, this has gone too far. You're going too far. You had this
anti-EV?
This is going too fast, too far, and that there's not enough demand. Underneath all of this is this idea that maybe there's not enough demand for EVs, that the American public has not bought into they bought into with your company, but they haven't bought.
I remember Vosh was really mad at the Chinese electric vehicle tariff for whatever reason. It's just because you got to be anti-Biden. Anything Biden does is bad. Remember, if you're going to be a lefty figure and you're going to like get clickbait about the current sitting president for 4 straight years, you've got to like shit talk nonstop the current sitting president. And so that's what they did. Now we've got Trump for the next 4 years. So, you know, there'll be a lot less of that. And a lot more advocating for whatever Dem runs. But once the Dems take power again, all these figures are going to switch straight back to like over-the-top bad faith attacks on the current sitting Dem administration that are going to massively poison the well of the lefty space that they inhabit against that candidate. They'll probably still advocate to vote for them, but then very few of their fans will inevitably vote for that person because they've been calling that person a genocider or anti-working class or whatever else for years, and now none of their followers want to go out and vote.
Bought into it broadly enough.
Well, I think if you make a compelling electric car, people will buy it, no question about it. I mean, electric car sales in China are gigantic. That's by far the biggest category.
Right.
MS March, you couldn't pay politicians more to solve that problem. A lot of the money that, say, like super PACs and big, like, financial, big company interests and stuff are done by, they're done to fund campaigns. They're not just to inflate the personal wealth of the politician. And to the extent I'm sure they do, but for the most part, like what politicians need a lot of money for is campaigns. Campaigns are like astonishingly expensive. They really are. Especially a presidential campaign, astonishingly expensive.
And I think that would be the case,
there is a concern that like getting rid of money in politics the way that exists now could lead to a barrier of entry for running for president, that you would have to have a shitload of money, basically selecting for just like millionaires and billionaires. If like a normal person who makes like 200K a year or something cannot afford to run for president, basically. Is Elon Musk even human? He's definitely melting. The Botox is definitely losing its touch with time.
I mean, it's worth noting, okay, so probably the best refutation of that is that the Tesla Model Y will be the best-selling car.
For those of you guys that don't know why Elon's face is like that, it's cosmetic surgery. He's had a lot of Botox injections. He's talked about it publicly. For those that don't know, Botox is a toxin derived from botulism. It is a it's poison. It's poison, and yeah, he also has hair plugs because he's balding. But basically, it's injecting poison into your muscles in your face to force them into like a paralyzed state of tightened, where areas where you might be wrinkling and showing a lot of age might show as a bit younger. The thing about Botox, though, is after a certain age, once you start to get into your like late 40s and 50s, unless you age really well, it starts to like make you look really flat and plasticky. And so Elon Musk has this like borderline android, unhuman, like Terminator fake skin look to him. Not because he's a robot, which I'm sure he'd love people to believe, but because he's had so much Botox that with age, it's aging poorly, you know? There's going to be a certain point where Elon starts to look genuinely hideous, because the harder you lean into cosmetic surgeries and procedures, the worse you look with age. It's not good, dude. It's not like, listen, I'm no hate to people who get Botox or plastic surgery, but like, generally speaking, it doesn't age well. And Elon Musk is an example of that. That is why he looks the way he does. It's Botox. You can find old pics of Elon. He doesn't look like a plastic doll whose like skin is stretched against his face like it does now.
Car of any kind on Earth this year. Of any kind, gasoline or otherwise.
Is there another car company that you think is doing a good job with EVs?
I mean, I think the Chinese car companies are extremely competitive. By far, our toughest competition is in China. So,
Why do you have a problem with Biden tariffing Chinese electric cars, which technically made Tesla cars cheaper to buy compared to Chinese electric cars, thus incentivizing Americans to buy more? As a matter of fact, since Biden took office, I have seen an exponential increase in the amount of Teslas on the road. I would guarantee you Elon made billions off of Biden's presidency, because ever since Biden took office, have you guys all, I've lived in Palm Springs and Seattle since Biden took office, so I've noticed a significant increase in the amount of Teslas on the road. I've seen like 4 Cybertrucks in Seattle in person, some on the highway, some parked, and I've seen countless Teslas. I've rode in countless Teslas, especially taking Uber rides. There's also, the EV tax credit that Biden passed, too. Biden's policies no doubt massively enriched Elon, as someone whose biggest industry, the thing he's known for, is electric cars. And Biden's whole thing with those selective tariffs was making Americans buy American electric cars.
I mean, there's a lot of people who out there who think like the top 10 car companies is going to be Tesla, followed by 9 Chinese car companies. I think they might not be wrong.
No one serious actually thinks that. Tesla is actually one of the most overvalued companies ever. Like there is a stat for that. Like how overvalued a company is. It has been predicted that like genuinely any day now the Tesla bubble is going to pop and it's going to tank. It's not viable. Like Tesla's stock value, it's like shareholder satisfaction, all of that shit is completely skating off of laurels and unkept promises. It's not sustainable. I don't think it can be sustained. A lot of people in the car industry, and I'm not a big car industry guy, but I know of like the largest people in the car industry. I'm talking like people that do like no bullshit car review type stuff that are like very respected. they're generally like pretty decent experts on the car manufacturing industry, and they all say that Tesla as a car manufacturing company is not viable long term. Yeah, its stock is tanking. I saw a report. Is it already popping? That wouldn't surprise me. Like, a lot of big deal people in the car industry have been saying that the Tesla bubble is inevitably going to pop, and it's going to be real rough for Elon and his stands.
So China is super good at manufacturing, and the work ethic is incredible. So
the work ethic is not necessarily so amazing. The reason why China is so good at manufacturing is because their wages for manufacturing work are so low. That's why China is so quote-unquote good at manufacturing. They're not good at manufacturing so much as they are so cheap for manufacturing that so many companies have decided to outsource their labor of manufacturing to China, because then they have to spend less money on workers manufacturing the stuff. They just import it. Now, though, we're talking about tariffing those things, which tariffs the company that it tariffs the company retailing. So if you're like Walmart and you want to buy a bunch of Chinese manufactured iPhones, Walmart's the one that gets tariffed. The tariff happens when they attempt to purchase and move through customs the shipment of whatever thing, the stock or of phones, whatever that they are buying. The company Walmart would pay a big ass tax, and then they get to take in the shipment. That sounds funny and base because Walmart has to pay a big tax, but then you remember, what will Walmart do if it suddenly gets to be more expensive for everything from iPhones to fucking towels to buy them in bulk from manufacturers to now sell as a retailer? What happens when they get taxed a shitload by the government more just at that start? They're going to pass the cost down to us, the buyers, the market, the people who buy the things. Obviously, these companies aren't going to take up to 60% tax tariffs on the chin. They're going to pass that 60 to 40% price increase down to us. Maybe they'll take a little bit of the hit, but more likely than not, we're paying for most of that. If you think inflation was 40 to 60%, you're delusional. It was not that bad. Average inflation under Biden was 12%. Trump's promising tariffs of 40 to 60% across the board on foreign imports and inputs. Inputs are the raw resources that we need if we want to do U.S. manufacturing. We don't have all the raw resources we need to bring manufacturing back to America. We need to import raw resources if we're going to do that. And that's going to be another level of expense, since we're going to have to buy when these manufacturing companies want to buy an input or a raw, like, fundamental resource to manufacture something, then they have to also pay a tariff at the customs area, like when the stock enters the country. And that's going to pass down to us at some point at the end of the chain. None of these big corporations are going to take the cost of these tariffs and the tax. It's a tax. That's what a tariff is. It's a tax on a company. None of them are going to take that tax in the chin.
You know,
we're going to suffer.
We consider
for it.
different leagues of competitiveness at Tesla. We consider the Chinese league to be the most competitive. And by the way, we do very well in China because our China team is the best China.
How worried are you that the unionization effort that just took place?
He has no skill in anything. He's a failure.
Well, I shouldn't say effort, but
I've never heard Elon Musk speak and sound like he knows what he's talking about. He's just like, even when talking about who he mains in Overwatch, he's just like awkward and cringe the whole time and doesn't really. He almost sounds like he's faking being a gamer, and I don't believe that he is, because, like, for those who don't know, Elon Musk made Amber Heard, his ex-girlfriend, do Mercy cosplay for, no doubt, his sexual satisfaction. If you do not believe me, the Overwatch character Mercy, yes, Elon Musk had Amber Heard, the Johnny Depp lawsuit Amber Heard, cosplay the Overwatch character Mercy for him because he is an Overwatch gooner. This is the picture of her, I think. Dude. We are in such a we are in bizarro world right now. That man's now going to be part of our government.
The new wages and the like at GM and Ford are that they're coming for you. And they are coming for you. What is that going to mean to you and your business?
Well, I think it's generally not good to have an adversarial relationship between people on the line, one group at the company and another group. In fact, I disagree with the idea of unions, but perhaps for a reason that is different than people may expect, which is I just don't like anything which creates kind of a lords and peasants sort of thing. And I think
Yes. Elon Musk goes on to spend the next 2 minutes explaining how unions are equivalent to a lord and serf relationship. Unions, that thing where workers come together, tell their managers and bosses that they're not going to be pushed around or subjected to improper treatment and pay, demand certain standards be met. In this case, that would be Elon, and the strikers or the people unionizing would be his workers, demanding better pay, demanding better working conditions, all things that people trying to unionize in Tesla factories have complained about. For those that don't know, Elon Musk doesn't even allow yellow safety lines or any form of safety tape in his factories. They are actually, it's illegal to not have this safety tape, but the only punishment is fines. And Elon Musk just keeps paying the fines because, notably, he does not like the look of caution tape marking dangerous areas in his factories because it looks ugly. And so he's willing to pay the pithy California fine for corporations that uphold or refuse to uphold that standard for their worker safety. Because remember, it's just a fee to admission if it's just a fine. And so Elon Musk just pays the fine. Didn't Elon come here illegally? I think he's a legal citizen. I'm not sure, though. Yeah, and so Elon is basically telling the American people that something that is objectively best for their working class interests is worse for them. The Republicans did not simply win because they ran on working class sentiment. They ran on populism. And populism, more often than not, is a cancer, a tumor on any political ideology it's associated with. I have found that more often than not, populism has absolutely no political margins. Populists get along left or right. Tulsi Gabbard, one of the most populist identified figures in all of our government, obviously also paid out by Russia, has been a Democrat and is now a Fox News host Republican. Populists are not progressive or left-leaning, and they're not conservative or right-leaning. They are simply people who utilize we're talking about America here, so where everybody is a low information voter. We're talking about people here who utilize the low information and ignorance of the average American to spew bullshit at them about how unions are like a lord and serf dynamic and tell them we need to just lower taxes and stop spending money on foreign aid. And people say, rah, rah, yes, that's how we'll get more money in our pockets. That's how we'll fix the economy. And they fall for it. Yes, they did run on a pro-worker message, but it was far from the same pro-worker message that you guys agree with or that Bernie spreads. In fact, it's outright anti-union while claiming that unions are anti-worker. We are not losing on the basis that the Republicans are doing a better job identifying with the working class. That's not what's happening. They have dominated the conversation. They have dominated the media that people actually watch. Obviously, legacy media is dying, but alternative media is where everyone's at. Joe Rogan, for example, is the biggest podcast in the world. I think you have to get down to podcast number 11 in the world's top podcasts before you get to one that isn't overtly conservative or didn't endorse Trump. I think the world's 11th top podcast is not conservative, and that's the first one. Number 9 or 8 is the Ben Shapiro podcast. Theo Vaughn is number 2, and he endorsed Trump and brought him on for an interview. He's the second biggest podcaster. He's just sort of a douchebag, redneck type guy. The podcast world and the alt media world, where all the people are actually going to get their opinions from, is dominated by the right. And when they go there, what they're hearing is nothing but this narrative that what the left advocates for in regards to the working class is bad and stupid and evil and is actually anti-working class, and they're buying it. Because working class advocates, actual working class advocates, have no realistic way of reaching the same audience these people can. Elon Musk dropped billions on Twitter just to control the platform and decide what messages politically get to succeed on there and get to be seen by millions of people. The fact is, well, yes, the Dems are going to have to engage in much more pro-working class messaging. It's not just that. There also has to be a massive, wide-reaching pull of people to pay attention and find out that the Republicans' rhetoric about the working class is nothing but false promises. Lies to a gullible population that are desperate for financial safety, promising something impossible simply just to get your votes. That is what happened. And so the American people probably don't even know in a lot of cases that Elon Musk said this. But in a lot of cases, they fall for it. A lot of this is we have to reach people. We have to reach people. And if you want to help with that, if you want to contribute your little slice of the pie to that, consider dropping a like and a comment on this video when it goes out on YouTube. And not just on my stuff, but on all of your favorite progressive content creators. Likes and comments are completely free. No money out of your pocket, only a second of your time. You can even just comment something dumb like, who up Xandering they haul? And it will boost everything that you do that on in the algorithm to some extent. And the more people who do it, the more of a boost it gets. A lot of people did it on a recent video that blew up and has like over 100,000 views in 48 hours. It's awesome. So if you guys keep that stuff up, we are going to rocket to the moon. Certainly faster than Dogecoin. Anyway, you can of course leave a comment, subscribe, and leave a like. I really do appreciate it. Follow my social medias, linked down below if you want to see more from me on other platforms, of course, including joining my fan Discord. There's a link to join for completely free down below in the description. I actually host gaming events, call-in streams, or watch parties once a week in my Discord on Fridays. So if you want to be part of the community events, make sure you join as well. And on top of that, I announce all my new uploads and streams, so even if YouTube doesn't tell you when I go live or upload, at least Discord will, right? And of course, finally, if you want to support me directly, financially, you can afford it and you feel like it, consider donating, subscribing, gifting a sub on my website, or supporting me financially through YouTube, Twitch, or not Twitch, but Streamlabs, Stream Elements, Patreon, or buying merch through the Streamlabs link down below. Regardless of how you support me though, thank you so much for watching, and as always, have a good one.